You ever wonder how to be more hands-on in your own productions as an independent artist? So today, my guest is Dice, and we have been friends for quite a while now. We got to work on a couple projects for your music, and you are a up and coming artist. I would say you are definitely further than any local artist. I would say for sure, but and you're really starting to make waves in the music industry. I'm starting to see you on more and more articles. So, for the audience that may not know you, do you want to give yourself a little bit of a background and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, as you said, my name is Dice. It's spelled D1C3. So if you ask Alexa to play my music and you say Dice, she will not play my music. You got to spell it out, unfortunately. I'm still working on that. But yeah, I mean, I started doing music when I was 13 after the loss of my stepfather. I started writing songs, prayers, lyrics, all that. And, before that, I was playing a lot of instruments and stuff. I played probably every instrument that you could think of. And after the passing, I started writing because I just felt like that would help me vent about it a little bit more. But, from that age, I felt like every single year I started taking it a little bit more serious. I started bringing, other factors into my music and, trying to learn a little bit more about, song structure and how to properly write out lyrics, which a lot of people still don't do. And it makes your life 1,000 times easier when you know how to do it. But I mean, yeah, I started off young. Took it serious and more seriously as I got older. And now I'm here.
That's great. That's interesting what you said there about people not knowing how to do lyrics properly
Yeah.
and how it helps you if you know the proper format.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it translates a lot to the film world.
hmm
Because there's a proper way to write a script, and there's how a lot of people just write it out, you
Yeah.
know. And then and it was interesting for me to learn because I don't have I'm not necessarily educated in that, but I have people around me who are, and then seeing how much all the little nuances of putting it in a proper structure, how it really does help streamline things and really make
Yeah.
so it's interesting to hear there's also a proper form to lyric writing,
hmm
you know. Can you, and so that's actually a little new to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to like hip hop lyrics, especially, there's a lot of confusion. Where I mean, I was in recording studios with like big artists
Yeah.
who are like, no, 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 this is how it goes, and I'm like, not really. But it's when you're writing out. So how do I explain it where it makes the most sense? Whatever you're ending,
Yeah.
let's say a line with, right? So a
Yeah.
line, all right. So when you write hip hop, we write in bars. So
Yeah.
a bar will start off, end with like usually the word that you're rhyming off of, and then that following line would complete that bar. So a bar is 2 lines.
Yeah.
So if you're saying
Understood.
like it's the catastrophe verbally ripping up your cavalry, I hold it down like gravity, you're hoping you could, you know what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah.
would be a bar. You're starting it off, you're ending it, and you break it up into that structure. You have people that say, no, 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 that's a line. It's not a line. A line is it's like one sentence.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you're looking at like
No, but you're looking like musically
like a piece of loose leaf paper, your line is that first line.
yeah.
The second line is that's the solid bar, is those 2 lines together.
Yeah, it's like
You
learning
know?
how to properly write out music. Like you write
Yeah.
out music in bars as well, and
Yeah.
this and that. But you want to do that lyrically because this way it all matches and lines up together.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, you were just about. Was that
Yeah.
just you freestyling right there?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh man, no, that's great. And well, one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on today, the podcast, not just like with your rap career and everything, but really, it's also I know you very well as you're a cinematographer yourself.
Yeah.
You are an audio engineer with a pretty good background. Actually, you've got to work on other people's and
Yeah.
some pretty big studios out in New York City, and then I've gotten the pleasure with my team to work on some of your music videos in the past, and we're still in talks of some other ones in the future. And we
Yeah.
work well together. And you've co-produced and co-directed them, and even helped co-shoot them alongside each other. So, and I've always impressed by like your versatility as an artist, but really taking hold of that production side. First thing Because I feel like there's a lot of artists that never really l- make that venture to really learn all that side. Not to
Yeah,
say that they should or not, but I think there's a power in your creative freedom
yeah,
because it's not just the creativity in your song, but it's the creativity in the video representation of the song or the
yeah,
sonic representation of the song in both
yeah.
cases. The first question I really want to dive into with that is like, did how did that come about? Was that a skill that you had prior to music, or was it with when came music, you felt maybe a need for control or a need to have someone because you didn't have the finances to get a professional? Like,
Yeah.
how did those skills come about?
So like I said, when I started doing music, I was only 13 years old. So I kind of started off with, like cheesy equipment. I mean, the first thing I used was like those old compact computers, like the little microphone that's in the top of the screen. Like that's what I was starting off with, just trying to record something to see if, I sounded stupid or not. And so I started off right there, and I kept hearing other artists, especially local artists, that had like such a better sound than I did, and I was like, well, if it doesn't sound good, regardless of what I'm saying, people aren't gonna, one, probably don't want to listen to it, and two, it's never gonna get further, and I started looking into what they were doing, what studios they were going to, what I can do to work with certain people. But when you're young and you just started out and you're not established at all, and especially when these artists were like, they weren't 13, they were like 19 years old, 20 years old that, I was referring to. And, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't have the funds. I'm 13. I'm not even working yet. I don't have any of these things. So what could I do? Now I had friends around me that were doing music with me, that I was working with and everything. But it was coming to the point where you know I would record this music with people, and then they would leave, go about their everyday life, and I was still sitting there in my room, like contemplating, like, what now? What am I supposed to do? And again, I didn't have the money for it, so I said, you know what? Let me start researching. Let me start looking at, what kind of programs these other studios use and what I can start getting to make my sound better. I don't have the age behind me. I don't have the money behind me. I don't have any of like the credibility or the relationships behind me that people actually want to help me. So let me try to learn more as I'm doing this, especially in hip hop. I wasn't good. So it's like, people were just kind of like, dude, you suck, and I'm trying to get myself better. And while I'm juggling those things, and, it was a pain in the ass. But as time went on, I started teaching myself, okay, this computer is not going to cut it. I need a better computer. So I had to save up money, get a better computer. I need these programs, buy these programs, and it came into play with the same other elements of it, like photoshopping. I started photoshopping almost around the same time I was doing music, because I was like, okay, so I need to get myself out there as an artist, but I see like all these cool photos out there of these artists. I don't have that, and I don't even know where to start. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll take some pictures and let me start learning Photoshop. So I was like literally in my room watching like 4-hour videos on how to use Photoshop. And I'm sitting there looking at these videos, and I'm,
Yeah, trying
copying
to
what they're
following along.
doing. And
Yeah.
and then eventually I was like, well, I have to, do some videos somehow. So I guess I'm gonna have to teach myself videos too. It's like I had all this time behind me, all like, and as I got older, as I got to like 15, 16, as a 15-year-old to 16-year-old, all my friends are out. You know what I'm saying? They're drinking, they're smoking, they're doing whatever they want. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so they're like, yo, Dice, come on, come with us. And I'm like, it's all right. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to keep teaching myself because I want to like perfect this. I want to get better.
So that's crazy. So almost right out of the gate,
Hmm.
you really started going into 13, I guess, and that's when you said you really made your decision. You're going into music, and then right at 14 and so on, you were just already thinking it's like, okay, I need to get my own album cover. I need to get my own videos going. I need to get my own this, my own that. Like you were already thinking the full gambit. You
Yeah.
weren't just thinking just the music. I think so
Yeah.
many people were just like, oh, I'm just doing the music, but
Yeah.
you almost had a business mindset behind it. You were like, you're like, I know I need the full package. I need the proper materials. And you're 14. It's
Yeah.
like, there's no backing here.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's like, okay, I'm going to do it all myself.
Yep.
And you just dove into the whole gambit right off the cuff.
Yeah. And and that's the thing too. It's like nowadays in the industry, a lot of artists aren't, they're not encouraged to do everything themselves. A lot of the times it's about how much music you can put out. And whether that's a lack of quality, whatever the case is, a lot of artists think it's all about quantity. And to a lot of distribution companies, it is about quantity. If you have a wave and people like your music and it doesn't matter what you're saying and they're just like, I like the way it sounds, these distribution companies are like, hey, I need like 100 songs like in 6 months.
That's
like,
insane.
yeah. And it's like, and that's what they do. They go in and they just do these songs. But then you have, and I'll say this, like with those artists, that's why they could say, I'm going to give you a $75,000 deal, or I'll give you a $100,000 360 deal, something crazy. And, I'll sign you and, just keep pumping out these songs. And a lot of these artists would be like, yeah, sure. Because they don't understand what kind of value they can have in themselves. Whereas now you have other artists that are like, no, I'm going to teach myself everything because when you need me, when you want me, what are you offering me? And that's
the leverage.
That's the thing that's what needs to be put in the conversation. What can you give me?
Yeah.
Now where I sit down, like, you're a label exec and we're sitting here and you're like, this is what I'm going to do for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because this is what you need to do for me. It's like, what are you doing for me? That's what I need to know, because I'm good regardless. If you give me $100,000, which whoever's watching this don't listen and don't just take $100,000. You're worth more than that. But whoever's giving you $100,000, it's like, okay, well, I don't need $100,000 for studio sessions.
Yep.
I don't need it for videos. I don't need it for photos. I don't need it for production. So, you know what I mean? What are you doing for me?
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to.
100%. I think I heard a saying once, a saying, never sit at a table you can't walk away from.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially when it comes to business and talking about money and stuff, you never go to a table that you're not prepared to just walk away.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you compromise, you lose all your leverage,
Yep.
And you gave yourself so much power being able to, like, if I wanted to, I'll produce my next record. I'll film all the music videos. I got the album cover set and everything, And it's like anyone who looks at your work, I love every aspect of it, album covers are professional looking and they're great artistic aesthetic. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
A great aesthetic to them, And of course, your music is, you're talented and your music's great. And obviously that's why, you're making these waves and you're getting the deals that you're getting.
Yeah.
But also it's like, can you speak a bit about also like the creative power now having, because even if, say, a label comes in and says, you want to do a video, like, we want to do a video for you. Like, hey, yeah, what I'm doing for you is now we're getting a production team, like with high caliber video and everything to do your video.
Yeah.
But now you have the know-how to really direct your own video. And would you say that's something else that's like you've valued even with our interactions, because you always been like, as we were doing your videos, you're co-directing and
there has been many times, especially now with having another child, there's been many times where I've like even mentioned it, like even to my wife, where I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I'll take a break from this music thing and I'll just focus on, the cinematic aspect of things, like just maybe even if it's not so much of like just doing other people's, videos, but like also, and, just filmmaking in general, but even if it's just like doing videos for older songs, because nowadays in the times that we live, your oldest music is your newest music to somebody on the planet. You know what I mean? Not everybody heard you. It doesn't matter who you are. There's people out there that never heard Beyonce before. You know what I'm saying? Like there are people out there that never heard Beyonce. And it's like, that's why it's always new. So working off of what you've previously put out is a possibility. So, I mean, to answer the question, I mean, I I take that aspect of it so seriously, you know, and I love the video and the cinematic aspect of everything, directing, producing. I mean, writing. I'm not the best at writing scripts. I do my best, you know. That's where like I'll come to you, or, you know, I'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
bro, I need some help. You know, I'm struggling, but you know, I just feel like, look, I've never gone to school for any of this. You know, and I've worked with people that have. I've worked with people with like all this, you know, this
Yeah.
experience, and I'm sitting in there, and you could be talking all the different lingo, and I'm like, okay, but I know how to go in. I know in here
Yeah.
what I want to see, and I know how to make that happen. And that's how I've always worked. And that's why I always had such a strong love for it. And there's, like I said, there's been so many times where like I've really considered just not doing music and just focusing on that, you know, because of how much I love it. And if there was a
Mm.
day where I'm kind of like, hey, you know, I'm gonna take a break, I would never take a break from, you know, filmmaking and, you know, doing music videos and stuff. Even if it's not my own, even if it was somebody else's, you know.
Interesting, interesting. And you, this passion, this love, also for filmmaking, the
Mhm.
cinematography side. Um, when did it come about? Did it come about while doing your own things, like your own videos?
Yeah, yeah, I would
Or
say so. I mean, I've also so I think what really triggered it was when I started doing videos for other people, right? Like a lot of times like people would say, "Hey, like I want you to do my videos," because they knew me as an artist. But I was like, "Okay, well, if you know that like you want me to work with you, like one thing I always have told people, and it's not for every like let's say client, but when I'm doing that, but if I'm working with somebody, I'm like, listen, if I'm even taking the money, it's because I really like the project, but I also want some kind of creative control. Like if you want me as an like and I'm an artist, it's going to be impossible for me to come into this project and not approach it in some kind of way as an artist. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't going to. So it started for me because I would be sitting there like filming, and then and you know, and when I was doing videos for the longest time, I didn't have a crew. I'm sitting there with, you know, my camera, and I'm directing, and I'm trying to do all this stuff at once. And I'm like, hey, you should do things this way, or we need to change this and do it this way. And a lot of times people don't like that. They're like, that's not what I want. So that's why I always like sit down with people, and I'm like, if I'm gonna work with you, I need you to trust me. Like if I tell you something and you don't like it in the end, then we don't have to use it, but try it.
yeah,
And then we'll go about it. You know what I'm saying? And I
yeah,
feel like that's what started that for me, because it's like I started like I started you know, seeing that there's so much influence in even videography that comes from like being an artist. Every single aspect, it's like hip hop. There's elements of hip hop, right? There's elements of just this whole entire universe. And all of these things are their own art forms, and they all influence each other. And if you, like, as an artist or a filmmaker or anything, like one, if you have a passion or or have a skill in this, I truly believe as an artist you have the ability to channel other aspects and elements of this world too.
yeah.
So it's like if you don't try to learn this or trust in it, you're just doing yourself a disservice, you know.
100% agree. You know, it's one of the things I love speaking with you because I relate so much both as a musician, as an audio engineer, and as a filmmaker, you know, all in different capacities, you know, but like I feel that when you do have a love for like being an artist, being a creative, you know,
Yeah.
that there is a transferable energy that
Yeah.
kind of flows in one into the next because um, I remember I described it once as a creative dialogue.
Hmm.
You know, you're presented with the thing you want to create and with what you have at hand.
Yeah.
And then the dialogue is just you going back and forth with your materials to try to get to your end goal.
Hmm.
Be it, okay, I want to create this video. So, you know, and you're back and forth with the elements you have at hand in your camera or even getting a song right in the studio. When you're working in the studio, I think it's very much the same conversation, the same dance.
Yeah.
You're working with all your gear, your outboard gear, your plugins, this and that, because you're trying to get to a goal with
Yeah.
what you have available to you. Plus, miking techniques, this and that. It's
Yep.
like there's such a creative aspect to
I'll
each of
tell
these
you,
fields.
I'll tell you too. Like it's funny because like I remember like when I first started doing videos and I was like trying to teach myself stuff, and I'm like, wow, it would be really cool, like if I could like take this one scene and I can kind of like change like the compositing on it to like make this stand out, but I want something to stand out in the background. And I'm like sitting there thinking about this, and I'm like, I know how to do that on Photoshop. Hold on, let me just see if I could. And I'm like messing around, and
Transfer it.
I'm like, holy shit, I could do the same thing. And I'm like, oh wow, all right. And then I'm like, you know what? I know how to like vector,
Yeah.
vectorize like a photo. Like okay, let me go into Photoshop now. Let me just put this down to a PNG, and because I'm not gonna lose the quality. I know I'm not. All right, yeah, let me bring that over. Can I drop this in? Holy shit, I can. And then I'm like, I'm using Photoshop now and what I know with Photoshop to teach myself how to do these things in videos.
Yeah.
And it's like, nowadays people are like, dude, you could have just did this. And it's like, but I'm like 15 years old, sitting here like, well, I know how to do this on Photoshop, to the point that when I was in high school, they had a Photoshopping class.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, it was a picture of Liv Tyler, right? So the teacher says, here's a picture of Liv Tyler. I'm going to give you 3 days. We're going to work on this. And I want you to take her image, and I messed up the image. So you're going to like fix her image. You're going to fix her skin. You're going to do everything. She's like, and we have the image. It's in Photoshop already. And like, we're all sitting in front of the computers. And she's like, and I want you to turn her into like a vampire. I want like her skin to be pale and her eyes to look different and, everything.
Crazy.
And she's like, you have 3 days. And I was like, excuse me. She's like, yeah. I was like, I'm done. And she's like, what? I was like, I'm done. She's like, what do you mean you're done? I was like, I did it while you were telling us what to do. And she's like, no, you didn't. I was like, I come look at it. And she's like, it looks better than mine. And she's like, how'd you do that? I was like, I don't know. I've just been doing this for a long time. She's like, you're like 16 years old. What's a long time? And it's like, and I'll never
What's a
forget
long
that.
time? That's funny.
And I just like, I remember those things. And it's like those little things made me like tell myself, wow, I can actually do this. I'm not bad at it. Cause especially when you're younger, and even in like the hip hop world, like people are so quick to be like, yo, you suck. You suck. Don't do that shit ever again. Like, how many times I've been told like, nah. You're engineering, you're mixing, you're mastering. It doesn't sound good. I don't like it. Nah, it's too this, it's too that, blah, blah, blah.
How do you handle the critics then?
I'm like, that's nice. Fuck you. No, I'm just like, all right, fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to be like, well, then what does yours sound like? And then I'll hear it, and then I'll like, pick at it. And listen, I'm a human being. If you criticize me and then show me your work, naturally I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna rip this person apart because I'm gonna find something I don't like. And we all have opinions, so I'm gonna find something I don't like. So it's like, as I got older, I'm like, cool. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Drake is one person's favorite rapper. Another person, they're going to be like, I hate Drake. You know what I'm saying? But it's Drake. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all have opinions. Like,
exactly.
But
it's such a subjective matter.
Yeah. And I've heard it so many times, right? I heard, mixing this, the video this, and I'm like, all right. I started working with Stadium Red, which is in Harlem. They were a Grammy nominated winning company. They did like the Monster with Eminem and Rihanna, and I don't know, they did everything. But I started working with them, and I'll never forget. It was like, so the first time I went there was for a writer's camp.
Okay.
And
so you went there as an artist first.
I went there as an artist and a songwriter. And what happened is when I went there were people from all over like different countries, all over the world that got flown in, and we were all writing songs for their signed artists, right? And I met their publishing manager prior, and he liked my music and stuff. So he's like, yeah, you should come for it. So that's how that happened. It's really simple as that. So I go there, and I'm writing these songs and stuff. And there was this one artist there. His name is Chris Reeder, and super talented. And he's like, yeah, you should. And he was like, under them. So he's like, hey, we should play his song Let's play one of his, one of his records and stuff. And they just started like, so I kind of was like in and out of the conversation, like popping in and out of the room,
Yeah.
and they just randomly played it. So like a lot of people didn't really even know what they were doing. Like he just started playing this song of mine.
Okay.
And I'll never forget. I go out and they like had like food brought in, catered in, and
Oh,
drinks and all
yeah.
that. And it was
It's a good time.
beautiful, beautiful.
Good
So
time.
I'm out there, I'm eating like a piece of Hero, and I walk in with like Hero still in my mouth, and I'm chewing, and I hear the end of my song, and then everybody's just sitting there, and they're all just like, "Wow." And he's like, "Yeah, that was good, right?" And they were like, "That was really good." And then this one girl, she actually flew in from Japan.
Yeah.
She was an acoustic guitar player and a singer. She was super talented.
Yeah.
She turns around and she looks at me and she goes, "I talked to you before this." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "But you're so nice in person." And I just started hysterically laughing. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You're so mean on your records." And I'm like, "No, I'm not," but it was like, that right there, it's like just people from other countries and stuff. And right after that, as I was leaving, the CEO came out and stopped me. And he was like, "Hold on, I want to talk to you." So we sat down and he's like, "I want to put you under us as our first published hip hop artist." And I was like, "All right, like let's talk details and stuff." And long story short, I did. I went as their first published hip hop artist under Stadium Red. And the next time I went out there, and in Studio B, it was called the Rebel Base, all like Star Wars related and stuff.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
that was just Blaze's studio. One of the greatest hip hop artists of all time, Jay-Z. I mean, I could just say Jay-Z and stop it right there. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Literally made some of his greatest records of all time. And I didn't even know that I was working in his studio. I was sitting in the studio, didn't even know I was in his studio. He was like out working with Slaughterhouse at the time, with Shady Records and
Yeah.
Eminem and them. And I didn't even know I was like the publishing manager, Kelvin, was like, "Yeah, you're in Just Blaze's studio, right?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "He's not even here, but I feel so much pressure," but but I'll never forget. I'll tell you this you'll enjoy this. So, because like I said, this is like a multi-million-dollar company. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, money, insane, right? So, the one like secretary, right? She like comes in. Her name is Samantha, and she's like, "Hey," she's like, "So, what can I get you?" And I'm in the studio. I'm just working, and I'm like, "I'm good." And she's like, "No, do you need some waters? Do you want us to go and get you some food? Do you want, And I'm like, "No, I'm all right." And the one guy in the studio was like, "Nah, bro. Hey, yeah, go up the block, grab us some of the best sushi you could find." And we're in like East Harlem, you know what I'm saying? Like we're like sitting here in the city, and he's like, "Yeah, grab this." He's like, "Go get these waters, the ones that I like that are imported from, He's like, "Yeah, grab those." She comes in with like food on a silver platter, and then she's like, "So what kind of he goes, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "Nah, man, you gotta enjoy this." He goes, "Yeah, you know what?" He goes, "The microphone that we're using, it's not gonna do." He's like, so she's like, "Okay, what microphone would you like me to get?" She says to me, and I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Any mic, whatever one you want." And I'm like, "All right." So like, I'm like, "What would be like one of my dream mics?" I was like, "Let me get a Neumann U87." And she stops and she's like, "Okay." And just like walks away. And I'm like, she comes back in and it's like in the box. And it's like, "How the hell did you get this?" She's like, "Oh, we have a closet of just like a whole bunch of all these microphones. You want a Telefunken? We got one of those, like whatever you need." It's like, these are like $10,000 mics. Like,
Yeah.
but it was funny. But back to like what I was saying about with mixing and people saying all the shit they were saying. One of the greatest moments in my entire career was they were playing my song. It was called Monster. It was off of my first album I released in 2016 and my album 13. They were playing it, and this man walks in the room, and he goes, he's talking like he's just having a conversation real quick, and then he stops and he goes, "What's this?" And they go, "Oh, it's one of these new songs, And then like, "Oh, who is it?" And he's like, the one guy in the studios, he's the engineer. His name is Angel. He's like, "It's him." And he's like, "It's really good." He's like, "Who mixed it?" And they were like, "He did." "Who mastered it?" He did. He's like, I'm impressed. And then walked out. And I'm like, that was cool. And they're like, do you know who that was? I was like, no. They're like, it's Ryan West, senior engineer. He's like, works with Eminem, Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Jay-Z, like you name him. He's that guy,
Oof.
you know? Like, and he just told you that your song sounds good, your mix and mastering's good. And I was just like, after a moment like that, I'm like, I don't need any more fucking
Yeah.
I don't need anybody telling me shit no more. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, yo, what, yo, you know, and like, I'm still like, I'm cool. And I'm like, there's times, you know, like we
Yeah.
don't like really talk, but like, but there are times where, you know, especially like back then, you know, like 2017, 2018, where I'm just like, yo, Ryan, would you mind just checking this out for me and letting me know what I could do better? And he's like, yeah, sure. And it's like, you know how much money he makes to do that?
Oh,
But it's like,
yeah.
you know, and it was just like phenomenal, like having that, you know, somebody of that caliber.
Having that respect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this man does like seminars all the time,
Yeah, of course.
teaching
Once you
teaching
get that
established engineers how to be better.
Yeah.
You know,
No one's shaking your tree after that
no,
one.
I was like, I don't want to hear nothing. I walked out like, you know, like a celebrity or something. Like, don't touch me. I'm sterile. You know? Like, nah, but you know, it was a great feeling. You know, it really was. It's like when you get
Yeah.
moments like that, it's just like I had the same thing as an artist. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it still goes today, thankfully. You know, but as an artist too, I mean, you're a rapper. It's like, oh, how many times you sound like Eminem? Oh, Eminem. I don't want to hear it. You know how many labels turn me down? You sound like Eminem. I don't want to hear it. You know? And then like Wu-Tang is just like, hey, yo, you're dope. And you know, and I'm just like, well, I don't need anything else after that one. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, so
People miss out, you know, and this and that. Dude, that was incredible. That I did not know those stories, so that was
Yeah.
great to hear.
I never tell them. You know, I've never told those stories.
Well, there you go. There you go. Now you know where to hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that just is great. And now, and like you said, you've just been doing that for such a long time up to that point, you know, and you still do it to many degrees. And now you have this great publishing deal with Sony, and then you got also now you have your own independent label
Yeah.
that you're signed to because you moved on from the previous label. And I think one thing that could be really valuable to hear too is just a little insight on like that journey. So it sounds like to me from what you said already too, and just based on what I know you, is like, you know, you really started stepping into being a songwriter and this and that. And then that's what opened up doors for you to get, like you said, your first label deal, your first publishing deal, and then
Yeah.
build it up from there. Now, what was your mindset in decision making in going from an established label to now going to your own label?
So I was looking for a distribution deal where I would be able, like, all right, so I didn't want to like release music through platforms that like anybody could just release music with, right? Because if you work with a distribution company that is more selective, they're going to naturally provide you with more resources. So what I did was, and I always say, listen, I mean, they're going to hear it and be like, this fucking guy. But, you know, there's always a way. That's why it's like what you said before about approaching things as like a business,
Yeah.
you know? There's always a way to get what you want as long as you like fill out the drawing board and look at it and be willing to like change things, you know, and dry erase board it, you know, and that's like the best way to do it because I sat there and I'm like, all right, so what distribution companies are the best distribution companies, you know, for independent artists? And I'm starting to look them up and everything. And I'm like, all right, so all the ones that like tell people no, those are the ones I'm targeting. Those are the ones I want, you know? And that's what I started doing. So I went through like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, and I kept going. And, you know, there's so many times where they'll just be like, and they'll just like reject you, you know?
Yeah.
So the one that I'm working with now, originally they told me, they were like, nah, because at that time back then, I like in 2016, I didn't really have as much of like a following.
Yeah.
You know? So what I did was I said, okay, well, how many labels do you have under you? And I'm starting to look into it and I'm like, they don't really have many. So, okay, so maybe if my numbers aren't enough, maybe if I round up all the best artists I know those numbers are enough. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own independent label officially.
Oh.
And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to make it an LLC and I'm going to do this and XYZ and all that. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm back. Here's my record label. And they're like, all right, we can work with that. So now I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm not signed, but I own this. So now there isn't a lane that I can't go into now because now you handle my distribution, but I have the ability where I'm not. Listen, like even if I said tomorrow, I don't want my name to be Dice anymore, it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
it's under my label.
Yeah. And
Like,
you own the label.
I own it. So it's like, you know, there's nothing I can't do now. You know what I'm saying? And that's why like I went that direction because I'm like, okay, well now I'm in here. I like that's your way of instead of just being like, hey, can you let me in? It's like, no. Now I'm here. Okay, cool. And I brought the whole family.
Yeah.
So it's like now, even if I have an artist that I'm working with and I'm like, hey, he's really talented, I want you to be a part of this. Let's say I want him to independently sign on to Rival Records.
Yep.
I don't need to find distribution for him.
Yeah.
I already have distribution for my label.
Yeah.
Anything I do is under my label, and that's, you know,
Yeah.
and I still have the free reign to sign to a major label too.
That's crazy. No, that's a phenomenal idea, or like just the way you solve that issue. Like, okay, if it wasn't my numbers, I made a label, and thus bringing, like you said, collectively all the best artists that you knew
Yeah.
that were independent, and now you guys are you all benefit because now you're all under a label, and you gives you more reputable reputation, and that leverage the distribution deal. So now you can even offer that because they distribute for your label. You know, not just you, but could be anyone under your label.
Yep.
And I've also now it makes more sense now that I'm seeing like the things you've been doing. Like now you got your records out in record stores because with your label, you know, you're making deals with the local record stores and different things
which
like
is
that.
a whole nother thing too. So before the label, because this was also part of my plan. So before the label, I went into a local record store. I'm not going to say which one because I want to put them on blast.
Of course.
And I've already said so many names, but you know, all good people. But like, so I went in there, right? And I'm like, true story, right? I go into the record store. This was my first album, 13. And I'm like, hey, how are you? You know, I have this new album. I would really like to put it on consignment and da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, okay, yeah, the owner's not here right now. And I'm like, okay, well, they're like, all right, you know, we could handle it. And then they're sitting there and they're just like, how much you want for it? And I'm like, oh, like $10. And they're like, okay, we're going to sell it for 13, you know, like stuff like that. So basically I said to them, I'm like, okay, can you put me in the rap section though? They're like, are you signed? I was like, no. They're like, okay, so you're going in the local section. I'm like, the section in the corner? Nobody's going to see my music. And they're like, get signed. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, all right, can you at least put my poster in the window? They're like, no, we don't do that. That's signed artist. That's poster space is signed artist space. I'm like,
you're ruthless.
I'm like, all right. So I leave. So I came out with my second album.
Yep.
Now that was Burn the Circus. And I started like hyping this thing up. I was having like raffles online. Like if you win this raffle, you put your name in and everything like that, pre-order the album through me. And I will, if I pull your name a week beforehand, no, what I did was I said 2 weeks beforehand, I send them a contract, they sign it, I send them the album so they can hear it in advance. And then they have to send me back a review. And I did that. And then what I did was, again, I said, you know what? I said, I have an idea. So I turned around and I went and I put online and I said, my record is going to be sold at this record store. It wasn't even there yet.
Yeah.
I was like, this record store. I said, but I was like, if you pre-order today, I said, you'll get it a week early. I'll release it physically a week early. You'll hear it before all the people that are going to stream it. And people were like, hell yeah. Call them now. It wasn't in the store yet.
Yep.
Everybody's calling them. Yo, we want that new Dice album, Burn the Circus. They're like, who? They're like, the new Dice album, Burn the Circus. So they're just like, I don't even understand what the hell's going on. So now I come there with like a box of records and I'm like, hey, I'm Dice. How are you? And they're like, people have been calling about you. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay. I'm like, so, anyways, here are my records. I want $12 for each one. I was like, oh, and by the way, I'm signed to Rival Records. I was like, so go ahead, put me in the rap section. So they're like, okay. So they put me in the rap section, right?
Yeah.
I leave, right? I leave. And let me backtrack. I put the box down, right? I probably gave him like 20 albums in the box, right? I still had like 400 at my house.
Yeah.
I leave. I go home. People are coming there to pre-order it, everything, right? When I said that release date dropped for the physical release, there was a line outside. They called me and they're like, you need to get down here right now. I'm like, all right. They're like, you're sold out. We need more records now. There's a line. We need them right now. I'm like, all right. So I come back. I give them a bunch of records and stuff. They sell out again. They're like, we need more records. People are like buying these things like crazy. What are you like? Who are you?
Yeah.
So I was like, whatever. So I go back in, right? They have it on the bestseller shelf. Okay.
Nice.
Bestseller shelf. So fast forward, I released my album, the one that got nominated and everything, right? White Noise.
Yeah.
I walk in there and they're just like, how much you want for them? So I bring in plenty of albums. I did the same thing, the physical release, everything like that.
Yeah.
They had, I turn around and I go, you're going to put my posters on the window now, aren't you? They're like, yeah, we're going to put your posters on the window now. So I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, again, there was a lot of people, they pre-ordered it. I did the same technique. I almost shed a tear because I went in there, right? Actually, no, Prophet, Sean went in there and he like seen it and, he took pictures and, other like there was podcasts and stuff that were like there who were like friends of mine that they took pictures and stuff. And they were like sending me pictures of the shelf. And I like almost shed a tear because they had all of my albums on the bestseller shelf. All my albums on the bestseller shelf. They like put me right there in the front of the store.
That's awesome.
Like they were like, if you got posters of the other albums, just give them to us. We'll put them up. And it was just crazy. And from there, I was like just contacting other record stores and I was like, hey, I'm sending them. And they're like, all right, send them.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy. It's like, that's what I mean. It's like, there's that loophole.
Yeah. I think it all goes back to like the video, the audio engineering, even the label. It just all goes back to, it's like really handling your own productions, just handling your business. Your business is your music.
Yeah.
And that's the tying thread between all this, But like it's not letting other people dictate that for you.
Yeah.
Giving yourself all the leverage, but really making the waves, because who knows, like if you didn't do any of that stuff, you didn't control the sound quality of your own record, different things like that. But like it's one thing to just do it and dive into it. It's another thing to take the time to really learn it, dive into it, and actually like put the same effort that almost, because from you, knowing you and just working with you, I would say you would put about the same amount of effort you put into making the song, like the actual music part, into the engineering, into the video of the music video.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with the label as well, it's the same passion, because I know for you, it's all tied to the same core. And I think a lot of people falter on that, where like all the passion goes in the song, but then they're like, even if they start doing these things to the side, it's not as elevated.
And that's like what I was saying before. It's like, listen, I'm not saying like there aren't artists that there are artists that don't do these other things and that takes away from that. And that's not what I'm saying. But when you, because there are a lot of artists that are like, I just want to make music, and that's okay. That's fine, And if you have the funds to pay all these people for it, hey, whatever works for you.
But there's an undeniable power though.
But it's like, but you're always going to answer to somebody. And people will always have the ability to tell you what to do. And because you don't know better, they can do that. Whereas there's so many benefits of learning. You could take full control over everything you do. People can't really tell you anything because who knows you the way you know you? Like, I'll tell you right now, it is so hard. The only person that has ever gotten me to allow Another artist to fully engineer one of my records is Prophet NYC,
Mm.
Sean. That's the only person that has ever gotten me to be like, I'll have somebody else engineer one of my songs. And that engineer was Chris Conway, who works in No Mystery Studios in Manhattan,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Or Brooklyn, I'm sorry. And literally, like, he's like one of the greatest, you know what I'm saying? He's also worked with Eminem, worked with DMX, I mean, you name it. He's worked with so many artists. And it's like, you know, but that wasn't what mattered to me. It was just the fact that Sean was like,
Was
he's
the
great.
Yeah.
And I was like, great. And then I met him and he's like fucking coolest person in the world.
Yeah, the personal reference for sure.
But, you know, when you can teach yourself those things and you take that creative control, you bring your value up so much as an artist. You really do. And you take that power out of other people's hands. They don't have as much control over you, you know? And it'll take me a million years to do something. I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to do this album. It'll take me 10 times longer than it'll take somebody else. But I'm literally have my hands in every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Even if everybody hated it, I'm happy with it because I made sure every aspect of it was exactly the way I wanted.
Yeah, and I would even say like it's paid off for you because I mean, just look at your track record already, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas some people, you know, taking the long route, it seems so because it's like, but it's also like taking the long route. You had longer time that, you know, it wasn't like a quick, easy thing for you,
Yeah.
like a fast rise, you know?
Yeah.
It's you put a lot of work, but you still, you know, you still getting those results, you know?
Yeah.
And you're getting them more true to you, you
Yeah.
know, sound wise, everything, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if I would have focused more on just songwriting and being an artist,
Yeah.
I probably would have had, you know, work out there like a lot sooner, you know? But would it have been exactly what I wanted it to be? Would it have been what I wanted to sound like? Probably not, you know?
Yeah.
But I would have had more. But like I said,
But
quantity isn't everything.
it speaks to your vision too.
Yeah.
And to the care for your art. I think a lot of people can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think and it just shows through your example like the value of taking charge of that. And even like, and the other thing too is funny because it's like you come off very strong, you know, too, about your opinion and about wanting the control, but personally working with you, like on your two music videos, for example, you are a very genuine and collaborative person, though.
Thank
You
you.
know, you are also like yes, you do have these strong creative ideas and stuff. Yes, but when we're working together, you know, it's like I feel it's a very back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, creatively, like in those videos where Marcus was directing,
Mhm.
and like between the three of us, you know, it's like it never felt like one was pulling away from the other. It was
Yeah.
always a collaborative. It was always a back and forth conversation.
Yeah.
And you were always open to listen to. And it's like, so it's like when you're talking about having that control, it's not
Yeah.
about being like
Nah, the
a
control-
dictator. It's
yeah,
about
the
being
control-
a participant and a communicator.
Yeah, like what I mean by that too, like the control is about not letting the people that are above you, like a record label, people that you would have to depend on to get to that next level in your career. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That they don't have as much control to dictate you and tell you what your worth is. That's the control.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like when you and I work together and we work with Marcus, like like that's the thing. I could work for a million years, but I still always consider myself as like above all a hip hop artist,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a songwriter, or I just say an artist, whatever. But I never like to say rapper because I just nah. But you know, I still was stepping into your world and Marcus's world and Anna's world and and Janelle's world.
Yep.
I didn't know the first thing about acting. I didn't know I didn't know the lingo when it comes to, you know, there was like certain things where it's like I was filming for years and you're just like, yeah, we're going to do this shot and this shot. And I'm like, that's cool. Do it first because I just want to see.
I didn't know
what
that.
is he talking about? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, you know, like so like, for example, I looked at all the work that Marcus was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at all the work that you were doing. And it's like, when I'm like, listen, I have this vision and these other individuals are super talented. And I speak with them like I spoke with you guys, and I'm like, these guys are really talented and we're all on the same page. I never go in like, hey, this is my project and we got to do it this way. I'm like, yeah, I have a vision for it, but how do you guys think we can make it better? You know, what do you think? Because at the end of the day, I'm always going to see myself as a hip hop artist. I'm an artist. I'm a recording artist, a song, but I'm in your world. You know it more than I do. I'm not coming in your world and telling you. I'm not going to go to Mars and be like, listen, aliens, oh, bro, listen, I understand you want to do it this way, but I'm from Earth. I think we could do it better. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm going to get vaporized. But no, seriously, like, I'm in your world. You know that world better than I do. You know, if you were like, hey, man, I want to start writing hip hop music, and I'm like, dude, let's get into the studio, and you were doing it for 5 years, you know, you're not going to be like, listen, bro, look, we're doing it this way and you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not how to collaborate. And it's like, you know, so when I go in there and like when we did Love Lies, for example, I mean, I learned a ton from you guys, you know, and it doesn't matter how much you know. You're always learning. We're
Oh yeah.
humans. We're learning all the time. I'm learning right now, you know. It's like that's the whole point of collaboration.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that control, like I said, that control is about not letting the people that can help your career elevate, the people, not the collaborators, but the ones that wear the ties
Yep.
and they slam the gavel.
And walk in and just change a bunch of things.
Because they'll walk in it, dude. I've literally been set up for executive meetings with people like, you know how fucking shitty it feels when it's like they were like, there was a label, and I'm not ready to say who it is yet. I probably will in music one day when I get annoyed enough. But they were like, yeah, all like a lot of other people were like, sounds too much like Eminem. Heard that, and then they were like, we see beyond that. We want to sit down with you, and I'm like, cool. And then the meeting didn't happen. So then I hit them up, and I'm like, hey, I had a meeting with so and so. Can we set that up? And they're like, sorry, we don't know who this is. Bye. You know?
Okay.
And it's like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, like, I try to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
I try to stay ahead of that.
Yeah, you don't let it stop you. Those are unfortunately pretty regular things that a lot of people go through. You know?
Rejection is like the biggest thing. And, you know, if you can learn to accept it, you'll get a lot further. You know, it took me a long time, a very long time. But, you know, I'll tell you, dude, I was on.
What was the final switch where you were like, you know what? Okay.
When I got nominated.
Yeah.
When I got nominated, you know, like I didn't think anything would come from it. To be honest, I don't trust anything. So like when I got contacted by the Independent Music Awards.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had like a panel of celebrity judges and stuff. And they're like, I mean, two of them, Coolio, God rest his soul, and D. Snyder were on that panel. And they were just like, you know, not them, but like the people in charge. They were like, listen, like we heard the music. We would like to put it in here, you know, to get, you know, possibly nominated. And I'm like, sure, whatever. You know, like I'm not going to hear back from this. And then a couple of months later, they're like, congratulations, you just got nominated for Best Rap Album. And I'm like, well, okay. And then a few months later, I released an EP with Intel from Second Generation Wu-Tang, you know, son of You God, nephew of Method Man, who Method Man is one of my favorite hip hop artists of all time. I mean, Wu-Tang like raised me. You know, my older brother was like, if you can't stand up toe to toe with them, don't do it. And now I'm an affiliate. You know, I became a Wu-Tang affiliate. I'm in a Wu-Tang novel. My name is in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, go on Wikipedia, look up affiliates. It's like, like those were those moments where I'm just like,
why do I even like worry about
why do I give a shit what people say?
Yeah.
You know? You don't want to sign me? Oh, that's what I sound like? Okay. Because guess what? Some of the best of all time don't agree. You know, and that's how I look at it now. You know, I was gonna say, like, you know, there was it was yesterday that I was like looking at the stats and stuff because this one like marketing agency like contacted me on Instagram, and I'm like, okay. And you know, because dude, there's so many fucking scammers out there. It's like pathetic. It really is.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for people that fall for it. But this one marketing agency contacted me, and they're like, we would like to work with you. And I was like, okay. So they sent me a screenshot of like Spotify and stuff. And they're like, oh, is this your page? Like these. And I'm like, yeah. But then I looked and I'm like, when the hell did that song get 100,000 streams? You know what I'm saying? And like, I go and I'm like sitting on the couch next to my wife and I'm like, did they edit this? And I'm looking and I'm like, this song was like the least streamed song. I never promoted this song. And I look back and I'm like, how the fuck this get 100,000 streams? You know, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like, how
This
is
is
this
on the
happening?
screenshot, or this is now actually
No,
on
this was
spot
me checking like my
on stuff.
artists. Yeah, because I never look at my numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I never look at them. It was actually,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was actually like one of my friends who's an artist. Like a while back, he was just like, "Yo, you know, like TikTok's like blowing up and stuff for you, huh?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Yeah, through the distribution that we were collaborating with, like we seen the TikTok numbers and they're getting crazy right now." And I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, the people that make the videos with the songs, we get views for them." And I'm like, "I never looked at that." So I hit up my distribution. I'm like, "Can I see this?" And they're like, "Yeah, you got to go through here." And I look and I'm like, "This shit got 20 million." You know what I'm saying? And then I'm looking, I'm like, "What the hell? How did that happen?" You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's bullshit. Where are my numbers? And they're like, yeah, well, if they don't credit you, I'm like, yo, that's yo, come on, TikTok. You know, I'm like, damn, that's like, so now it's up to like 60 million. And I'm like, and that's for like one song. So I'm like, so how do I get paid? And they're like, well, you don't get paid for views, you get paid for how many videos they put them in. I'm like,
Okay.
that's where you robbed me. But
That's
but that's what I'm saying.
that's the
Like,
game.
I don't even pay attention to that stuff. And it's like
Yeah.
those little things, like it can like turn everything around for you. Cause it's just like I look at these things and I'm just like, how the fuck that happened? You
Yeah.
know, Mask On with me and Prophet, you know,
Yep.
off the Beauty and Misery album.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, dude, we did that project. Yo, Mask On is like doing crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's in like Brazil, India,
Yeah.
you know? And like now I start seeing like there's like all these people from India like using this song in like their videos and like, you know, and then they're like contacting us and they're like buying these songs because their streaming and stuff is different than ours.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have the same stuff in all the same countries. So, but I'm like, wow, like you don't even speak the same language as me. You know, there's people that like contacted me and they're using a translator just to talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even speak the same language as me. But yeah, and I didn't like do this song in Russian too. Like, but meanwhile, you're contacting me from Russia and you're
Da.
using a translator. Yeah, like, and they're literally like just to speak with me, you know.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking and I'm like, in this country, how does this have like 500,000 streams in the last 4 weeks? And I'm like, yo, that's crazy.
Yeah. No, I
It's
mean,
crazy. It really is. That's the shit that makes you like, I don't care what anybody says anymore. People say to me all the time, well, if you know you do all this, why are you still working, you know,
Yeah.
for this place? And I said, because I said, go, cool. Find your favorite rapper and ask them to show you their real house. Tell them to show you the real car that they drive all the time. Not
Yeah.
the rented one and the leased one. Not the one that they leased for,
they'll go
you
for
know,
the
TV.
events and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, go look at that. I'm not talking like, listen, if you're like one of the greatest, biggest artists of all time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're like Drake or Jay-Z or M, or, you know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
no, I get it.
you got the money, but it's like these other artists like that are like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
that's why. A lot of them still do work, you know,
I
side
get it.
jobs and stuff.
I got you.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, and just really to wrap it up though, I think it's like you just summed it up perfectly, you know. It's well, one thing is like also it's like don't be afraid. Look at your prior successes. Don't forget they exist. Like
Yeah.
those are the things that's like, wait, no, that like I do have value, you know?
Yeah.
And really just understanding like as an artist, there's so much value in just having at least a foundation
Mhm.
in all the areas that affect your art, you
Yep.
know, and your ability to distribute. And when you face roadblocks like that, there's always a way, and there's always like, you know, that same attitude of just like, okay, you're gonna say no. What do I need to do for you to say yes? Oh, that's what matters to you. Okay, let me see what I can do. These are resources. This is who I know. This and
Yeah.
that, and you just figure it out.
Yep.
And man, with all that just being said, I think I just want to end this off with maybe just one tip you would have for maybe a young artist just starting out, maybe a teenager who's thinking about getting into music, whatever it may be, filmmaking or whatever it may be.
I mean, the best advice I could probably give is study everything that you want to get into. Study it, because if you don't know what you're doing, if, like I said, look, even if you, yes, I started out and I work with you and I've worked with Marcus and I work with so many people who I've stepped into your world and I'm still learning, but learn about it. Learn what you love and then learn how to make it better. Anybody can just start writing something and then go to a studio and do it. But what's going to make you stand out from everybody else that's doing it too? It's the hardest thing nowadays. We have the biggest platform in the world, the biggest platforms in the world, social media, all that. Do something that makes you stand out. And a lot of people do like dumb shit to stand out, but but hey, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be somebody that's just going to, raise a few eyebrows for a little bit of time. You need to figure out what's going to increase your value. There are so many people that they were artists, but now they're producers and they're filmmakers and they're, audio engineers, or they're DJs, or
Hmm.
they literally just operate a chain of businesses. Like, people put themselves through business school while they're sitting there being an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
find ways to build your value, even if you just started,
Yep.
because that's going to make you a lot more valuable to the people that you're trying to impress. But if you work on that enough, then it doesn't matter whether you impress them or not, you know?
I think that's fantastic. Again, thank you so much for your time,
Thank
Dice.
you.
Really, and I'm happy to be able to call you a friend, and always
Likewise.
look forward to working with you.
Yeah, we're going to be
Um,
working again very soon.
very soon. Where could the good people find you?
The best thing I'm always on is Instagram. So it'd be Dice Official, D1C3 Official. Or I just say, just go on Google and type in D1C3 Dice, and it's,
Yeah,
everything pops up.
your music's all over the place. Spotify, iTunes, the
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. There's like a link on my Instagram. If you go on it on the bio, you click it, and then it has like every single link that
You
you
got a
can
link
go
tree.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I always forget what website I use, but it's one of
Oh,
those
it's
things.
one of those things. Yeah, I think people are
Yeah. Whatever
familiar
one
with
look
it now.
good, I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. I'll pay the subscription, whatever. It's easier.
I got you, man. And yeah, and you could always find us at Vision Maker Productions on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. And that'll be all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Leave in comments your favorite antidote or your favorite note from this.